My brother wore my ring while I was at work and told everyone he's my girlfriend's fiancé. My brother Deacon had been planning this identity theft since the night Harper proposed to me. He'd been sitting 2 tables away at the restaurant, invited along just this once because he said he had nowhere else to be, and he watched the whole thing happen. Harper on one knee, the whole room clapping, his face doing something strange that I mistook for happiness at the time. By the time we got home to call our parents, he'd already started building his version of the story. I just think it's convenient that Sydney gets engaged right when I finally landed the promotion. He told our mother on the phone, loud enough that I could hear it through the wall. Everyone's going to forget about my news now. The promotion he was talking about was a lead position at the logistics company, where he mostly answered phones and updated spreadsheets. But in Deacon's mind, every good thing that happened to me was something being taken from him. 4 days after the proposal, Deacon started wearing a ring to work. Not just any ring, my actual engagement ring, the one he'd lift out of my jewelry box every morning after I left for my hospital shift. He'd studied my schedule like it was a heist. I left at 5:45 for rounds. He left at 8 for the warehouse office. 2 hours and 15 minutes to be someone else. His coworker Nadia noticed first. "Is that an engagement ring?" Deacon held out his hand, my ring, tilting it so the light caught the 2-carat oval stone. "Finally official," he said. "Harper's been wanting to keep it quiet a little longer because her family's private. Old money. They own half the marinas on the coast." Harper's family owned exactly 1 boat, a 14-foot fishing skiff her uncle kept in a rented slip. But Deacon had built an entire universe around my fiancé that didn't exist anywhere except in his head. He'd gone through my phone while I was asleep on the couch and pulled our actual engagement photos, then used some editing app to crop me out and paste his own face into the frame. He showed these around the warehouse office like they were vacation postcards. "This is us in Positano," he'd say. "This is us at her family's place on the water." The Positano photo was from a weekend camping trip we took 2 hours upstate. The place on the water was Harper's uncle's dock, where we'd grilled hot dogs in July. Within a week, Deacon had told his entire office about the wedding. It was going to be at the Botanical Gardens downtown. The flowers were being flown in from a specialty grower in the Netherlands. His suit was being tailored by someone who'd dressed men at actual embassies. Every detail had been lifted straight from the folder of wedding inspiration I kept on my laptop, the one where I'd bookmarked budget venues and written "someday," maybe, next to the expensive ones. Every evening, he put my ring back in the exact spot in my jewelry box before I got home from the hospital. Deacon didn't stop at photos and venue names. He let Nadia and 2 other women from the warehouse office start planning an informal little celebration for him, the kind coworkers throw when someone's genuinely excited. A card everyone signed, a gift card pooled together for the happy couple, a sheet cake from the grocery store with "Congratulations Deacon and Harper" written in blue icing across the top. He brought the cake home in its plastic clamshell container and left it sitting on our shared kitchen counter like it was nothing, like it wasn't a monument to an entire fabricated relationship built on my life. I stood there staring at Harper's actual name written in frosting on a cake celebrating an engagement that wasn't hers, and felt something in my chest go cold and very still. I texted Harper a photo of it without a caption, and she called me within 30 seconds, her voice tight. "Is that real? Is there a cake?" I told her yes, there was a cake, complete with her actual name on it, purchased with money his co-workers had genuinely pooled together out of kindness for a wedding that existed only in his head. She was quiet for a long moment and then said, "I don't know whether to laugh or scream," and honestly, in that moment, neither did I. I never suspected a thing until Nadia called our shared apartment landline looking for Deacon to confirm a catering tasting. When I answered, she said, "Oh, is this the future Mr. Whitlock? Your voice sounds different than I expected." I told her she had the wrong number. "No," she insisted. "Deacon gave me this number for wedding emergencies. He's marrying Harper Whitlock in June. I'm doing the seating chart." I hung up assuming it was a prank call, but then my cousin Naomi texted me. Saw Deacon's engagement announcement on his office group chat. Someone screenshotted it to me, LOL. "Wild that you both got engaged to women named Harper around the same time. Small world." That night, I confronted Deacon in the kitchen, where he was standing at the counter wearing my earrings, the ones I'd bought to match the ring. "Those aren't yours," I said. He didn't even flinch. "Prove it. No receipt on you right now. No witnesses. Just your word against mine." I reached for the earrings and he snatched them back and locked them in the metal box under his bed, the one with a combination only he knew. That Sunday, our whole family gathered at our parents' house for dinner, and Deacon showed up wearing my ring like it was nothing, tucked casually against his knuckle while he reached for the mashed potatoes. Harper sat across the table from him, her jaw tight, watching him show my mother the ring under the dining room light like he was unveiling a piece of art. "Isn't it beautiful?" he said. Harper picked it out herself, said she wanted something that would still look good in 50 years. My mother cooed over the stone, turning his hand this way and that, completely unaware that the woman who'd actually chosen that ring was sitting 2 feet away, chewing her food very slowly to keep from saying something she'd regret at the table. I kicked Harper's foot under the table, a silent signal to hold on, not yet, and she exhaled through her nose and kept quiet. My father asked when the wedding was, and Deacon said June at the Botanical Gardens like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Harper's knuckles went white around her fork. After dinner, I cornered my mother in the kitchen while she wrapped leftovers in foil. "Mom, that's my ring. Harper proposed to me 2 months ago. You were there when we told you." My mother waved waved a dish towel at me like she was swatting away a fly. Sydney, don't start. Your brother finally has something exciting happening in his life. Can't you just let him have his moment without making it a whole competition? I stood there with my mouth open, stunned that she could look directly at the evidence and still choose not to see it. It's not a competition, I said. It's identity theft, Mom. He is wearing my actual ring. She sighed, the long-suffering sigh she always used when she wanted a conversation to be over, and told me she'd talk to him later, in a tone that made it clear she had no intention of doing any such thing. The next morning, my cousin Naomi called me before I'd even made it out of the parking garage at the hospital. Hey, so this is going to sound insane, but I just saw Deacon's coworker post something on her story tagging him as her future brother-in-law, and there was a picture of a ring that looked exactly like yours. Is everything okay? I told her everything was very much not okay, and gave her the short version, the ring, the schedule, the fake photos. Naomi went quiet for a second and then said, okay, that's actually deranged. Do you want me to screenshot everything I can find from his coworkers' pages? I told her yes, please. And over the next 2 days, she sent me a growing folder of screenshots, engagement congratulations comments, a coworker asking about bridesmaid dress colors, someone tagging a florist account with the caption, can't wait for June. Every single post was stitched together out of details lifted straight from my own life, filtered through Deacon's imagination and presented as his. That night, I sat on my kitchen floor with my laptop open and called my best friend Priya, who'd known me since undergrad and had zero patience for nonsense. I walked her through the whole thing, the schedule, the doctored photos, the insurance call to Harper's job, my mother's kitchen non-response. Priya was quiet for a long moment and then said, okay, we're not doing the thing where you just absorb this and hope it goes away. We're building a file. She made me pull up every screenshot Naomi had sent, every text from Deacon, the timeline of when the ring first went missing each morning based on my own memory of when I'd last worn it. We built out a simple document together over video call, dates down the left side, what happened on the right, starting with the night of the proposal and running all the way through the insurance phone call. Priya highlighted the parts that felt most damning in yellow, the fake wedding venue claims, the doctored photos, the impersonation call to Harper's HR department. This isn't sibling rivalry, she said, staring at the screen. This is a pattern, and patterns are what get people believed. Keep every receipt, every screenshot, every voicemail. If this ever needs to go further than a family dinner, you'll have it all in one place. Harper's manager pulled her aside again 2 days later, this time more serious, less confused, asking point blank if there was some kind of family situation going on that HR needed to be aware of, since a man had now called twice claiming to be her fiancé. Harper had to sit in that office and explain out loud to her own boss that her girlfriend's brother had apparently decided to impersonate her fiancé for insurance purposes. Her manager's eyebrows had climbed steadily higher throughout the explanation. That's not just weird, that's identity fraud, she'd said. If he calls again, we're documenting it and looping in our legal team. Harper came home that night rattled in a way I hadn't seen from her before, dropping her bag by the door and standing very still in the middle of the kitchen. I had to explain your brother to my boss like it was a normal sentence, she said. I had to say the words my girlfriend's brother is pretending to be my fiancé out loud in a professional setting and watch her try not to make a face about it. I pulled her into a hug and told her I was so sorry, that I was working on it, that it wasn't going to keep going like this. She held on tight and said, I believe you. I just need it to actually stop. The next day, he escalated further. He brought a framed photo of Harper from my nightstand and set it up on his own desk at the warehouse office. He started signing his work emails Deacon Whitlock. He even called Harper's job pretending to be me, asking her HR department about adding himself, a fiancé, to her benefits plan for the next open enrollment. Harper's manager was so confused by the call that she pulled Harper into her office directly. Why is some man on the phone saying he's engaged to you? Says his name is Deacon. Harper called me the second she got out of that meeting, her voice shaking with a mix of fury and disbelief. Your brother is unraveling. He's telling people we're engaged. I told her I knew. I was handling it, but I wasn't handling it. I genuinely didn't know how. Our mother had already decided it was one big misunderstanding, that Deacon's coworkers had simply assumed things, and he hadn't bothered correcting them. She told me I was being dramatic, that siblings share things, that this was just Deacon being Deacon. A week later, Deacon's office scheduled a happy hour at a bar 3 blocks from the hospital where I worked, and by sheer bad luck, 2 of my own coworkers had picked the same bar for a birthday thing that same evening. I found out about the collision the next morning when my coworker Renee cornered me at the nurse's station looking baffled. Hey, random question. Does your brother work in logistics? Because there was a guy at Finnegan's last night going around telling everyone he just got engaged to some woman named Harper, and I swear he looked exactly like the photo on your desk. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I asked her what exactly he'd said, and she recounted it detail by detail, how he'd shown off the ring to a table of strangers, how he'd mentioned the botanical gardens, how one of his co-workers had actually raised a toast to the happy couple while Deacon beamed and soaked it in like sunlight. Renee said she hadn't thought much of it until she noticed the ring looked identical to the one in the photo of me and Harper that I kept propped against my monitor. I stood there gripping my coffee cup so hard my knuckles went pale, feeling the walls of my own life getting narrower every single day he kept doing this, like there was nowhere left that was just mine anymore. Not my ring, not my relationship, not even my own co-workers' perception of who I was. I called my mother again that night, calmer this time, more deliberate, because Priya had told me to stop leading with emotion and start leading with facts. I laid it all out flatly. He wore the ring to a bar 3 blocks from my job and toasted to an engagement that isn't his, in front of people who know me. This isn't him having a moment, Mom. This is him building an entire fake life on top of mine, and it is starting to bleed into my actual workplace. There was a long pause on the line, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said, "I'll talk to him," in the same flat, unconvinced tone she'd used every single time before, and I understood in that moment that she was never going to be the one to stop this, that whatever happened next, it would have to be something undeniable, something she couldn't wave away with a dish towel and a sigh. Harper finally confronted Deacon herself the following weekend, cornering him on the back porch while I was inside grabbing drinks, and I watched the whole thing unfold through the kitchen window without being able to hear a word of it. Her arms were crossed, her posture rigid, and Deacon kept shrugging, palms up, that same easy smile he used whenever he wanted something to just blow over. When she came back inside, her face was flushed and furious. "He told me I was being uptight," she said quietly, "so my parents wouldn't hear through the screen door." He said, and I quote, "It's not that deep. Nobody's actually getting hurt." I told him identity fraud is very much that deep, and he laughed at me. Actually laughed, like I'd told a joke. I pulled her into a hug and told her that laugh was exactly why we needed more than words this time, why whatever came next had to be something he couldn't shrug off with that same easy charm he'd used his whole life to get out of consequences. I found out about the appointment almost by accident. Naomi texted me a screenshot of Nadia's public work calendar, which synced automatically to a shared team page, showing a blocked-out lunch slot labeled ring cleaning, W, botch, Deacon plus Fiancé's co-workers, downtown jewelry counter, Thursday 12:30. My hands went cold reading it. He wasn't just wearing the ring anymore, he was planning to walk it into the exact store where it had actually been purchased, with an audience, like he was daring the universe to catch him. I called Priya immediately, and she didn't hesitate. "That's your shot," she said. "Bring everything. The receipt, the box, the photos, all of it, and get there before he leaves. If he's going to perform this in public, let the public watch it fall apart." I spent Wednesday night laying every piece of evidence out on my kitchen table, the blue box tucked in tissue paper exactly as Harper had kept it, the receipt folded in the drawer where I'd never once needed it until now, my phone charged and ready with the unedited photo gallery pulled up so I wouldn't have to fumble for it later. I barely slept, running through what I'd say, what I'd do if he tried to bolt, what I'd do if the staff didn't believe me either. By the time my alarm went off Thursday morning, I already knew exactly what time I needed to leave the hospital to make it downtown before he could slip out the door. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description. The breaking point came when Deacon booked an appointment to get his engagement ring professionally cleaned at the jewelry counter downtown, the same counter where Harper had actually bought it 2 months earlier. He brought Nadia and 2 other co-workers along to witness the moment, wanting an audience for his little ceremony. The associate, a soft-spoken man named Elliot, greeted them with the kind of polished warmth jewelry counters train into people. "Beautiful piece," he said, admiring the ring on Deacon's hand. "Cleaning today?" Deacon beamed. "Yes, my fiancé bought it here. We're getting married at the Botanical Gardens in June." Elliot's expression shifted just slightly. "This looks like one of ours. Let me pull it up in the system." He scanned the inside of the band with a small handheld device they used to verify serial numbers against sales records. His screen populated with information, and his eyebrows moved a fraction. Nadia leaned in. "Everything okay? It's such a gorgeous ring. I just want to make sure it's all documented properly." Elliot nodded slowly. "Of course. Do you happen to have the warranty card? It should have come in the presentation box at purchase." Deacon laughed, a little too loud. The ring had never been purchased under his name at all. The system showed 0 matches between the ring's serial number and any customer named Deacon Whitlock. Elliot stepped back and gestured toward the manager's office at the rear of the store. Deacon's confidence drained out of his face in real time. He tried to keep smiling, but his voice came out thin and off-key. Nadia touched his arm. "You look really pale. Are you okay?" Elliot kept his professional composure, but something behind his eyes had gone alert. The store manager emerged from the back office, a woman in a sharp navy blazer with the kind of posture that made the whole counter feel smaller. Her name tag read Whitfield. Elliot showed her his screen, murmuring something low, and her eyes flicked up to Deacon and back down again. The 2 co-workers standing with Nadia shifted their weight, exchanging uneasy glances neither of them could quite explain yet. Whitfield stepped up to the counter and offered Deacon a smile that didn't reach anywhere close to her eyes. "We just need to verify a few details about this piece before we can service it. Do you have the original receipt or any documentation from the purchase?" Deacon's hand had started to shake against the glass counter. "It's at home, somewhere safe. I don't carry it around." "Of course," Whitfield said. "And when exactly did your fiancé buy this for you?" 2 months ago, right before he proposed." Which location?" Deacon hesitated a beat too long. "This one. This exact store." Whitfield glanced at Elliot, who gave the smallest shake of his head. "Our records don't show a matching purchase in the last 6 months," she said evenly. Deacon's face flushed dark red. Maybe it was a different branch. She travels a lot for work conferences. Nadia's phone buzzed in her pocket and she stepped a few feet away to answer it, and Deacon's eyes tracked her with something something close to panic. Whitfield kept her voice level. I understand. However, before we can proceed with any service, we do need to speak with the original purchaser to confirm ownership. It's policy for anything above a certain value. Deacon reached out and grabbed the ring back off the little velvet display tray. You know, I'll just take this somewhere else. This is ridiculous. Elliot shifted his body just enough to block the path to the door without making it look like he was doing it on purpose. Sir, we do need to complete the verification first. Deacon's voice cracked upward. You can't keep me here. I have somewhere to be. Whitfield raised a calm hand. Of course you're free to go, but we also have a responsibility to make sure items brought in for service haven't been reported stolen. I'm sure you understand that. Nadia came back over from her call looking rattled and walked straight to Deacon. That was your sister Sydney on the phone. She says she's on her way here right now and that you're wearing her engagement ring. One of the other co-workers actually gasped out loud. Deacon's mouth opened and closed with nothing coming out. Nadia kept going, her voice hardening with every word. You told us Harper proposed to you last month. Sydney says Harper proposed to her 2 months ago. That timeline doesn't even line up, Deacon. He grabbed for Nadia's sleeve. She's lying. She's jealous that I finally have something good. Nadia pulled her arm back sharply. But you showed us the venue photos. You asked me to help plan the seating chart. Whitfield stepped in smoothly. Perhaps we should all wait for this Sydney to arrive and sort the matter out properly. Deacon's eyes cut toward the exit, like he was calculating whether he could make a run for it, but Elliot hadn't moved from his spot near the door. The store had gone strange and quiet, except for the soft instrumental music piped through the ceiling speakers. Deacon's breathing sped up, shallow and uneven, and I watched later on the store's own camera footage how his co-workers stared at him, with expressions sliding slowly from confusion into something like dawning disgust. 20 minutes felt like 2 hours to everyone standing there, according to Nadia. At some point, Elliot had quietly stepped into the back office and returned with a second employee, a younger man from loss prevention who didn't say much, just stood near the door with his arms loosely crossed, watching. Whitfield asked Deacon gently if he wanted to sit down while they waited, gesturing to a small velvet bench near the engagement displays, and he sank into it like his legs had given out. One of his co-workers, a heavy-set man named Grant, who'd been mostly quiet the whole time, finally spoke up, his voice low. Dude, did you actually lie about all of this? Deacon's head snapped up. It's not lying, it's complicated, okay? Families are complicated. Grant just shook his head slowly and looked away, out the front window, like he couldn't stand to watch whatever was about to happen next. Nadia stood near the counter with her arms wrapped around herself, refusing to look at Deacon at all, her jaw tight, and every so often she glanced toward the door like she was hoping it would open and somehow make this not true. I pushed through the glass doors of the jewelry store with my bag stuffed full of fruit. The original box, the receipt with Harper's signature, and a date 8 weeks back. My phone opened to the unedited engagement photos of me actually wearing the ring at the restaurant the night it happened. Deacon was sitting in a chair near the counter looking like he might be sick. His co-workers stood clustered by the window, arms crossed, not looking at him. Whitfield approached me with a measured, professional calm. Are you Sydney? I nodded and slid my receipt across the glass. This is my ring. My fiancé bought it here 8 weeks ago. I have everything documented. Elliot took the receipt and ran it through his system, and his whole face cleared at once. This matches our records exactly. Purchase date, ring specifications, everything lines up. He looked over at Deacon with barely concealed disgust. Whitfield examined the original box and compared the ring still on Deacon's finger against the photo on my phone of me wearing it the night of the proposal, matching angle for angle. Deacon tried one last time, his voice small. She let me borrow it. For photos, we were just messing around. Nadia cut him off flatly. That makes no sense at all, Deacon. You've been telling us for weeks you're engaged to Harper. You gave me venue names. You asked me to help with a seating chart. You don't borrow a ring for photos and then plan an entire wedding around it. The other two co-workers nodded along, one of them looking close to actual tears. I can't believe I told my mom about this. I believed you. Whitfield's voice stayed calm but firm as steel. Sir, I need you to return the ring to its rightful owner right now. If you refuse, I will have no choice but to involve store security and the police. Deacon's hand trembled as he pulled the ring off his finger, holding it for one long second like letting go of it physically hurt him. Then he all but threw it in my direction. Fine. Take your stupid ring. Everybody's blowing this so far out of proportion. I caught it out of the air and slid it back onto my own finger, exactly where it belonged. Whitfield turned to me. I apologize for the situation, ma'am. We take authentication seriously, and I'm glad we were able to resolve it before any real damage was done. Deacon shot up out of his chair fast enough that it scraped hard against the floor. His co-workers actually stepped back from him, putting distance between themselves and whatever this had turned into. Nadia's face was a mix of anger and humiliation. I trusted you. We all trusted you. You made every one of us look like idiots in front of each other. Deacon's eyes filled up, but they were angry tears. Not sorry ones. Whatever. You're all acting like I committed a felony. He tried to shove past Elliot toward the door, but Elliot didn't move an inch. Whitfield spoke again, unbothered. Before you go, I do need to log this incident for our internal records. Deacon rattled off his information in a flat, hollow voice, while Whitfield wrote it down, the loss prevention employee standing quietly by in case anything more needed documenting. His co-workers filed out first, not one of them saying a word to him on their way past. Grant paused at the threshold just long enough to mutter, "Man, that's rough," without ever once looking back at Deacon. Nadia lingered a moment longer, and I could see her deciding whether to say anything anything else at all. She finally turned to me instead. "I'm so sorry. If I'd had any idea." I shook my head. "It's not on you. He's had a lot of practice." After she left, Deacon tried to slip out too, but I stepped directly into his path. "We're not done. You stole my ring. You told an entire office you were engaged to my fiancé. You called her job about insurance benefits. You showed up at her boss's building basically through a phone line and dragged strangers into your lies for weeks." His face twisted into something ugly and familiar, the same look he'd had since we were kids whenever I got something he thought should have been his. "You always get everything. Perfect Sydney with her perfect job and her perfect fiancé. I'm allowed to want something good too. Why does it always have to come from stealing yours?" I asked, and for once he didn't have an answer ready. He just stood there, jaw working, staring somewhere past my shoulder like the answer might be written on the wall behind me. Whitfield cleared her throat gently. "Perhaps this conversation should continue somewhere else." I nodded and stepped aside just enough to let him pass, and he practically bolted for the exit without looking back, the door swinging shut hard behind him, the little bell above the frame still jingling in the sudden quiet. Elliot exhaled and looked at me with something close to sympathy. "Family, huh?" I managed a small, tired laugh, something like that. I looked down at the ring, finally back on my own hand exactly where it had belonged the entire time, the stone catching the store lights the way it had the night Harper first slid it onto my finger, and for the first time in weeks, the weight of it on my hand felt like relief instead of something I had to defend.